If you know me, you know I have to root for my own team. And ironically, Alpha Flight is an amazing team, I feel like, and the story is no different. It comes with its own turmoils, troubles, and tribulations it has to go through. Sometimes you want to scream, sometimes you just want to sit back and let the story unfold. Speaking of which, sit back, relax, like and subscribe as I break down Fall of X a little bit more. Scene opens on Alpha Flight as they talk to each other about something that they've done that people will ostracize and chastise them about doing. It is an odd thing to see, and we already see the seeds being planted for reveal later on in this comic. Department H has got a new head director, Erica Doiran. She's among the ranks of anti-mutants in the Marvel continuity currently. Canada has joined the United States and probably other specifically European countries, I don't know, I just get that vibe, in banning mutants from inside their borders. They introduced a reformed Alpha Flight team, with the mutants who were previously on the team no longer on. Department H has partnered with Orchis on restarting the Box program. This means that a lot of Box Sentinels are being produced by the Canadian military, and we are reintroduced to Roger Box Jr., who is affiliated with the Canadian team as well. We then get our first look into what the Box Sentinels look like, and they remind me of what Fox did with Days of Future Past on the big screen. While they do share some differences, at first I thought we were going to get something from more of the anti-mutant side of things. Really dive into that aspect because it's very interesting to see that side of the story, I guess. However, later on, that is clearly not the case. We learn that Roger can control the Box Sentinels in order to not worry about them going rogue. He's installed mechanisms and more in place, so he could take control of the Sentinels when needed. Also, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I do kind of think of Mechagodzilla when this guy puts on the helmet. Like the whole thing of not actually being able to control the robots. I like. I just had a feeling that would backfire. It would like completely backfire on him. I don't know if that's still the case or not. We then cut to California in the USA where Dr. Lucas Peterson is confronted by Orchis soldiers about being a mutant. We soon learn that he is a mutant of the name Feedback, and he goes more on the run from Orchis than he already is. Just before we could digest all that, we then see Alpha Flight trying to apprehend a mutant named Argent, aka Laurent Bavota. I am sorry if I'm butchering that name. Laurent Bavota. I don't know. He has the powers of manipulating his body into liquid metal. Just as Alpha Flight is about to apprehend him, Aurora, Fang, North Star, and Nemesis intervene and teleport Argent away. The entire flight was recorded by people who were viewing it from the outside, like more or less the public, and the Alpha Flight embarrassment was visible on the entirety of internet. I will say they definitely acted the part well, and you'll see what I'm talking about later on. Then cut to Feedback talking to his wife on the phone. He called her and the two began communicating. He confesses to her about being a mutant and that she seemingly doesn't care actually. We learn that his real name is Albert Lewis, and he's been in hiding for years, at least a decade judging by his daughter's age. However, in the end, we learn that Orchis was just using his wife in order to get a ping on where Feedback was, so they could hunt him down and bring him in. As she sees it, Alpha Flight had not only failed to bring in Argent, but the entire ordeal was posted onto some probably in-universe version of YouTube. We learn that the Box Central program is being rolled out the very next day, and that Alpha Flight is not the only one in this fight against the mutants anymore. As a reader, we learn where the mutants are hiding out, and why the government hasn't actually been able to reach them. There's some secret place in Manitoba called Kokora North. It's at the end of the comic where we finally get the big reveal. Alpha Flight actually hasn't abandoned their friends. They are instead secretly siding with them and actually trying to get every mutant to escape Earth, possibly to Mars, where they are more or less being deported to, if I'm going to be completely honest. I stared at that page when I first read it. Honestly, I was crestfallen that Alpha Flight could do that, betray their team like that. But I clapped and cheered, knowing that they are still the good guys in this story, and Alpha Flight is still pretty much in its entire roster. Like, their roster is pretty much the same if you count the mutants. The next comic is Realm of X, and we sort of catch up with Magic about where she went right after the mutant massacre on the island of Krakoa. Things look peaceful at first, but then you look about 5 feet to the right, or something, and there's a large battle going on, which I honestly find a bit amusing. Magic seemingly cannot teleport anymore, which is puzzling to see. And we can definitely see who our primary character is going to be for the rest of this specific comic run. Magic, if that hadn't already been obvious. She has been brought to this place with Dusk, Mirage, Mara, and Typhoid Mary. The group then learns that they have been transported to Vanaheim, which is very confusing and odd place for a story to teleport them to, more or less, after the Mutant Massacre. We'll get to that later. A split second later, we see that Magic is panicking, since seemingly a mutant named Curse is gone, too. Quite ironically enough, we jump cut to moments before where we see Curse running through the woods. Curse has the power to, well, curse people. Fitting name, honestly. She can speak jinxes and inflict them upon animals and humans alike. We see her doing this with some wolves. Magic is seemingly the only one who feels useless in Vanaheim, since she's the only one without her powers. The other mutants have still retained their powers upon arriving in Vanaheim, however, Magic hasn't. Just apparently had been out looking for Curse, and we get this small funny scene of her interrupting the dinner of everyone and pissing Typhoon Mary right off. Apparently they had also been dropped in the middle of a civil war. However, something is odd. The people here in Vanaheim seemingly know how many of them will come, almost as if they've been expecting this specific group of mutants. Magic then goes on to explain to Mero that Vanaheim is a realm of divination, and prophecies and premonitions are pretty much just a daily occurrence here. The civil war is against someone called the White Witch, who is currently out and about. She stumbles across Curse, but before we can see what really happens between the two of them, Bargain bin Boromir, in Mero's words, really explains what is going on and why they've been expecting them in particular. With the mutants being here, that foretells a second doom and destruction of Vanaheim. They have seen the mutants rival for centuries, and what Vanaheim knows is that in the battle with the White Witch, 4 strangers will play key parts in all of that. We then see this panel where the 4 strangers that were in the prophecy have been carved out in stone. They look identical to 4 of the mutants that arrived here in Vanaheim. Mirage, Mero, Typhoid Mary, and Dust. Magic is seemingly not included in this bunch, which is furthermore pointing to her being the main character. At the end of the comic, we see that the White Witch is interacting with Curse, and that she's taking the little kid in. She knows that Curse will play a key role in the upcoming war, and that she kind of hopes to utilize Curse as a weapon. This is one of the more out there storylines I have to say in the Fall of X Saga. However, I still do enjoy it for its own merit. However, not as much as the Invincible Iron Man series, which we'll be covering next. We pick up right where we left off in the last Invincible Iron Man issue. Tony Stark wounded in front of the Stark Sentinels right in the street. In case you need a recap, the Stark Sentinels are being controlled by Fei Long, an anti-mutant with a vengeance for Stark. He went on a rant about how killing an Avenger in the streets wouldn't be good for Fei Long's image, anti-mutant or otherwise. So in this issue, Fei Long disengages, and the Stark Sentinels go off to find the White Queen. Captain America offers to bring Tony to a hospital. However, Tony doesn't want to go. He wants Fei Long to think of that the great Tony Stark has been beaten once and for all. And so he himself goes off to find Emma Frost. How, may you be asking? He had a tracker built into the armor, and so he went down into the subway tunnels to find his suit, eventually freeing Emma Frost from it as well. He catches her up on what exactly seemingly happened at Krakoa as they talk a bit about really what to do with the many mutants that died on that island. Probably in a good old Tony Stark fashion, he explains that she should avenge them if she wanted to. The next time that we see Tony is on a call with Jen Walters. She explains that Rhodey is going through some difficult times in prison, being assaulted, and he thinks that Fei Long has something to do with it, wanting to see Tony suffer some more. Tony then returns the now hollowed out Mark 70 armor to Fei Long as he goes soon to find Emma Frost again. He explains what was going on with Rhodey, how Fei Long wants to see him suffer. They talk and go to the Hellfire Club, with Emma Frost disguising herself as Hazel Kendall to go undercover. Now the ring that Tony got out of his Mark 70 armor that I think is supposed to block any sensors from Sentinels that might detect that she is a mutant. However, it also dampens her powers as well. We'll see that come into play later. We see that Wilson Fisk is a new White King at the very end of this specific comic. That he had been working with the White Queen on some projects. Luckily, the next 2 issues, the reading guide follow up right after where this comic left off. So, the first few pages explain what the Kingpin went through during and after the fall of Krakoa. He was beaten by Orcus and pushed aside. Eventually, he got together with the White Queen, business partners, teaming up to take down their mutual enemies. In the weeks since, the Kingpin has been raised to a pretty high standard in the Hellfire Club. That's seen with a lot of his iterations and appearances over the comics. We also see where Kamala Khan has specifically been during the Fall of X. Since she was in the tunnels as well, she's currently undercover at the Orcus Science Center. A very anti-mutant school for obvious reasons. We see that a girl is being bullied by anti-mutants. However, she isn't really even a mutant. She has alopecia, and just because she looks different, they think that she's a mutant and she's still bullied. Shadowcat could be seen on the Blue, an Orcus-run space station that I have mentioned in the past. She's going there to kill Firestar, as we have last heard from her as well. She kills a lot of guards along the way, and even gets through to Firestar's living quarters. However, Firestar explains that, just in the nick of time, what really happened. About how Jean entrusted her with this mission in order to try and help take Orcus down. You see Kid Pride left and explain how that is the most Jean thing she's ever heard. I did say I love the humor in this run of comics, and it really is amazing. Now, if a new partner to trust, Kitty shows Firestar that she could now travel through the Krakoan portals when she couldn't do before. Just at the end of the comic, we see that the White Queen is really just fed up with his act. Fed up with being around Fei Long, and she cannot really do anything about it. Tony brings her to the back room, seeing how they're about to blow the cover. As Fei Long enters the back room, Tony feigns proposing to Hazel Kendall, trying to keep the cover together. Invincible Iron Man issue number 10 takes place a little bit before their specific storyline, like the ending specific scene, but we are still going to, get into that later. Tony calls Rhodey, who is in the middle of prison. At least it first seems that way. Confused, Rhodey explains how he didn't call Tony, and Tony didn't call him. That's when Stark realizes that what Fei Long is trying to do with this specific phone is get Tony to hear his buddy beaten to death on call. Just as Tony is about to search for Fei Long to interrogate him about this, Wilson Fisk explains the precautions that Tony has asked for were put in place. We get an answer to this at the very next page, where we see Arthur Park's Living Laser and Flynn Marco, the Sandman, get there in time to save Rhodey from being beaten to death. Fei Long learns of this plan having had failed, and we now catch up to where the last issue left off. Emma was about to take the ring off as Stark tries to get her to put it back on. Fei Long enters as we see what he thinks the two are proposing. To buy into what he thinks, the two active off and actually do get married, which is still really funny to me. Fei Long then asks if he's invited to the wedding, to which Tony replies no, because he's a badass. However, when they go to Las Vegas, Fei Long actually does come to the wedding. The pair decide that this would be the right time to ambush the visitors, including Fei Long, in order to try and download all the information on the Sentinels he has stored inside of there. Fei Long has a photographic memory, and we learn why he specifically hates mutants so much. His parents were both mutants, but he was born a human, and that is why he hates them so much. They go back into the real world, and they have all the information that they need. Hazel tells Tony of a metal called Mysterium, which Tony needs for a new Iron Man suit, a stealth one in order to help try and bring Fei Long down for good. The last comic that we're covering in this video is the first Miss Marvel issue in the series. It's co-written by Iman Vellani. He's probably the biggest Marvel superfan I've ever really seen before on the internet. I will say, at first, the comics do open on a weird scene. It opens with Miss Marvel being presented in front of a wide range of champions from the Marvel Universe, breaking out of the egg that she was revived in and ending this sort of Silver Surfer Doctor Strange hybrid that she feels equally confused at as we are. We learn that then this is taking place before she goes to the Orcus Science Center, that specific section, in a dream. Never get rid of dream sequences, I tell you. We learn that her family and Bruno are helping her pack before Bruno helps her drive there. I personally love Kamala Khan's family. They're among like the best in the world, and they really just make me sentimental. Like this is the one superhero family in the universe where bad things genuinely, hopefully, don't happen to them. At the Science Center, Kamala meets a girl named Michelle, who will be her roommate from here on out. As Bruno and Michelle rave about her plasma generator, Kamala sneaks out, saying that she is going to orientation. However, what is really happening is she's going to the sewer systems underground or to get together with other mutants. Shadowcat, Rasputin, Sync, and Talon are all there. They're working to try and infiltrate the Science Center. Another just great detail that I love is that because Rasputin is from the future, all of this stuff is history to her. And so when Kamala just brings her candy bar, she is like, oh my god, this is the stuff of legends. And that just makes me want to hug her or something, I don't know. Orcus has a secret lab underneath the center, and they have no clue, they being the mutants, where it is or what they are specifically doing in there, that they being Orcus. Miss Marvel ponders whether or not she should tell others about her recurring dreams since they resurrected her. However, she does have this awkward moment that I know is just me. Like, this is definitely me coded, and I would do that upon leaving certain scenarios. When she gets back to the surface, she tells Bruno about what really happened to her. Her dying, discovering that she is a mutant, and really just everything Emma Frost told her not to tell anyone. But Bruno is Bruno, and he honestly doesn't really care about it and just hugs her. We then hear beeping and learn that apparently Bruno just has an extraterrestrial threat detector, which is honestly quite amusing to me, that he just carries it around and gives a sense at the otherworldly entities that have just been popping up so much in this universe that a guy just has to carry something around to detect when one is nearby. So, Miss Marvel puts on a suit and jumps into the fray, carrying a being that she suspects Orcus had experimented on. Before she had time to think, however, the being was ready to explode. She realizes this and embiggens herself to help save the nearby students. However, they all interpret this as her trying to kill them, that the whole thing is her trying to kill them, that this has been staged, and they couldn't believe that a mutant was actually on an anti-mutant campus. Needless to say, Kamala's rather depressed when we see her get back into the dorm room with Bruno arriving. He attempts to console her as she eats food, wrapping herself up in a blanket. I would personally happy to get under a blanket like the one she has too, and it seems that it would be very comfy despite her trying to keep a positive attitude when everyone is vilifying her. Needless to say, they play games for the night until Kamala passes out from exhaustion because she doesn't want to sleep. And if she sleeps, the dreams will arrive, and tonight is no exception. At the end of the comic, we see the Orcus underground bunker where an Omega Sentinel takes residence. We learn of something called the Trojan Horse program that we will be getting to more in later issues of the series. Either way, we pan up to a news broadcast where it says that Miss Marvel, reportedly a member of the X-Men, further vilifying her amongst the eyes of humans. That's where we're going to leave it off for today, folks. It was a small struggle to write the script, and I honestly just got it off in the end. Subscribe for more, and somewhere in the iCard, there will be a link to a playlist specifically for my breakdowns of the Fall of X storyline. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to be notified whenever a new upload hits. See you next time.